Weh Mame, ich führe Liebe und von der Liebe tut mir weh mein Herz. Wer es hat gespielt, a falsche Liebe, der kann fühlen, man bittere Schmerz. Wer es hat gespielt, a falsche Liebe.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Radiant Others. My name's Dan Blacksburg, and I'm a klezmer trombonist, composer, and educator, recording this live from my West Philly basement. I'm thrilled to be bringing you another conversation between myself and a person from our great, beautiful, beloved Yiddish world, our Yiddish and klezmer world filled with incredible artists from everywhere, all walks of life, all backgrounds. Today on the podcast, Yiddish singer, concert and festival organizer, absolute road warrior, Sasha Lurje. Sasha is somebody who is just going to be on all sorts of projects of klezmer music that you're going to come across your path, singing archival material, new stuff, everything from very traditional settings to super rock and roll with her band Vorspiel. Sasha is originally from Riga, Latvia, and now lives in Berlin, but like I said, is a road warrior and can be found traveling pretty much all over the world, all the time. So watch out. If you're interested in klezmer music, Sasha's probably coming somewhere near you soon. I've known Sasha for almost 20 years, and in that time, we've had really interesting ways in which we've been closer or farther away from each other, both geographically and in terms of the work that we're doing. Most recently, we got to tour together last December for a Hanukkah tour with Michael Winograd and the Honorable Mention. And at this point, we're just hard and fast friends who can really just get down right where we left off at any point. And it was just so great to talk with her. We talked about how she's such an amazing artist and she gets so many cool things that she's working on and making happen. And we talk about growing up and being Jewish. And one of the most interesting things was how we come from really different backgrounds, with me living in the northeastern United States and her coming from the former Soviet Union. And even though our backgrounds as Jewish people were super different from those different places, we both found our way to this Yiddish world, these klezmer festivals, and found for ourselves a place where we could really explore what it meant to be ourselves, what it meant to be artists, and what it meant to be Jewish. And I just think that's such an amazing thing, that this space we have that people have consciously created through festivals like KlezCamp, Klez Canada, Yiddish Summer Weimar, KlezFest London, KlezFest St. Petersburg, and all other ones that have been around for so long, provide this space where people of such different backgrounds can find themselves or find such a common thing. I think it's really wonderful. And we talk about a lot more than that in terms of craft and in terms of the scene and in terms of being artists and all that stuff. So I really think you're going to like this one. I and my producer, Bela Unger, are so grateful to all of you who listen, and especially grateful to everyone who has signed up to support our podcast on Patreon. Right now, we're making episodes once a month. Our income from Patreon is a little bit under what it would actually cost to make that happen, and we would really like to get it higher so we can make more episodes and bring even more awesome conversations to you. So you can go to www.patreon.com/radiantothers and give what you can. We're not so good at giving all those extra bonus features that all the other podcasts give, but we hope that what we do provide is really important. And I personally know from all the feedback I get from pretty much every episode that it is. So thank you to everybody who supports us in every way that you do. Rate, review, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. You know all about all that. Oh, one more thing. You might notice that I'm sounding a little congested today. So speaking of sound, there is a sonic artifact that was in the recording that we tried to get out of there with the editing process, but we were only so successful. So if you hear some sound in the background, it sort of sounds like a door creaking or a door hinge sometimes. That's the nature of live recording, and I think the content of our conversation far exceeds any troubles with the sound. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with Sasha Lurje. All right, we are back with another episode of Radiant Others, and it is my great pleasure to be talking to my dear friend, Sasha Lurje. Hi, Sasha.
Hi, Dan.
So, I know that you are the world traveler, you are a road warrior musician, and so my first question is, where are you? And if you happen to be at home, where have you been recently, and what are you up to? What have you been up to recently?
Yeah, you caught me at this mysterious, magical moment when I'm home in Berlin. The most recent place I've been to is the great festival of folk and world music here in Germany in Rudolstadt, which was really a wonderful experience. Just this past weekend, I was there with my dear friends of You Shouldn't Know From It, which is a
Right.
band that took a serious break over the pandemic and after, and we haven't played in 7 years and had this very special little reunion weekend. Played for dancing in a huge dance tent with over 500 people dancing together. I definitely had a moment when I thought I was going to be crushed there, but it was absolutely brilliant because it was over 500 people that actually wanted to learn and dance together. Very special
Amazing.
experience.
It's a really big festival. I think I was there with Dan Kahn once in 2011, 10 or 2011, or maybe even earlier. But it's a wild festival.
They told me they had like 40 different stages, including all the buskers and stuff. They had over 3,000 people working for the festival, and it's over 100,000 people attending all the events, indoor, outdoor, camping, everything. And it really has such a wonderful spirit. I heard some really beautiful music, saw some old friends from different places. It was very, very nice.
Right? Yeah, I know some other our friends were there. That's great. I was thinking about you and how long we've known each other through kind of different uh, closeness and far away, both geographically and like musical activity wise. Sometimes, when we started, we were sort of in different worlds, and then recently we've been on tour together in the past year. But my question though is, as like a road warrior who's really, I think you're like absolutely on top of the game right now, when did you realize that you could just kind of take over the Yiddish world and just do whatever you wanted, and that all you had to do was make it happen? Like, when it's very clear that you are on a roll, and like, so
Am
when did
I?
you, when in the course of like this time, like from being a student to being like a first as you're working, and then now that you're like running the shows, like when did you realize that it was time to run the show?
I don't know. I have realized that. Or like, I don't know if I have had like this moment of like, oh, this is what I need to do next. Most things in my life really feels like they happened quite naturally. Like how doing Yiddish music went from I just love it to I do it all the time, and I have suddenly noticed that I have already put in all this work, so I guess I am doing it professionally now. Um, Same with doing things and organizing. It's it's partially things were happening around, and it just felt like the most natural thing to do. And at the same time, um, a certain motivation of, I don't know, I believe that in what I do, I believe that a lot of the projects that I'm involved with are important and serious, and they bring something to the world, and there is something that needs to be said, and I'm trying to say it. And there is knowledge that needs to be spread, and I'm trying to spread it. And yeah, I'm also grateful for every opportunity my colleagues have given me. I've been very lucky to be around people that are also very active in creating spaces and organizing and collaborating. Craig, my partner, is a very active organizer. So, um, in the past 8 years that we've been together, we've also done a whole bunch of things that probably wouldn't have happened if we didn't have this partnership. And all the things that are happening here in Berlin, a lot of things that we're organizing started from, let's just go jam in that new bar that opened around the corner so that we have our own space to hang out. And um, now it's over 10 years that we've been running these jam sessions, and we have Zingarayan, we have a festival that is lovely, and we are building our own community around here. And everybody who comes to visit our community really sees that this is a special thing. And I don't think I was like, oh, I want to do it this way or the other way, and I had like a particular game plan. I was just really, I know it might be a little corny, or it might sound a little strange, but I was just following my heart, and I was following what I believed was right. And so I don't think I had like an epiphany moment. I can't say I had that.
I think sometimes the work is just there for you to do. And if for whatever reasons you're able to do the work, then that usually leads to other work. I have a friend who uh, runs a community venue in my neighborhood. And I just remember this Facebook post from so long ago that she said, "There's nothing like doing a good job to set you up to have to do a whole lot more work."
That's
And
so
I thought,
true.
wow, that's it's so true.
That's so true.
It's so true. And I was like, yeah, so that's in a way, that's like what happens. I think sometimes you're like, how did I even get here? And you're like, well, I did that. So then I had to do that. And then I did that. And then I realized, well, I really should do that. And then boom, you said like with Berlin and the Shtetl Berlin scene and like the jams, it's like 10 years later, boom. And it happens in a flash on some ways, right?
It's also not like it, I don't want to make it sound like it all just miraculously came together. There was a lot of work that was put into it by both me and my colleagues from like all the different sides. Like it doesn't just happen on its own, right? But
That's right.
we jumped into an opportunity with our heart and with our love and with our knowledge, and ready to do the work so that it happens, right? So
Yeah, it's the best way to learn skills is when you decide you're going to just learn whatever skills you need to learn.
into the deep end.
Exactly. Exactly. So when was what were some, you know, when we met at Clus Canada in 2004, 7? Okay, 2007. Where were you on this journey of like what was the deep end for you then?
It was really, that year was really a break year kind of for me. I was 22. I had just quit technical university just a year before, or half a year before finishing the diploma, because I was going to be an engineer. Um, and I entered Academy of Culture to study cultural relationships and folklore and cognitive linguistics. And I also, that was the year that summer I went to every summer festival. I went to St. Petersburg Class Fest, which was the last year of it being like full size workshops and with the whole community. A very special place that I'm sure we'll have to spend some time talking about, because like that's a, for people like me from former Soviet Union, it's a very significant place. And I went to Weimar, and I went to London, and I went to Class Canada at the end of the summer that I was on the road the whole summer. It was also the first time in my life um, traveling for this long in all these different places, first time crossing the ocean, kind of first time experiencing what jet lag is, falling into this place of where a Jewish culture festival is also very Jewish and less about
Yeah.
learning about music and skills, which is what I had experienced before. Um, and huge. And honestly, I think like I'm surprised you remember meeting me, because I felt like I was so overwhelmed and so exhausted the whole time, um, that I almost, I was walking around. I felt like my body was not solid. Like I felt
Yeah.
a little moosh, and um, but that was a very important year because I met all these people. I learned that there is a world beyond the world, and that I can, if I want to, jump into it and have these communities that are incredibly different, incredibly polarized within themselves. So you can find whatever you want in there, and that you can create that. Back then I still was living in Latvia, and I still was hoping to build more of that back home. Kind of had those dreams. But yeah, it was really, that year was really everything. So many things happened that year. So many experiences and inspirations happened that year. I think it was a very crucial year for me.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah,
met
it
you,
makes
which has
sense.
also changed my life, Daniel.
It was great. There you go. I mean, I definitely remember us hanging out a lot. No, I don't think. I think there was a lot of. We were all. I mean, I was still in my little clique. We were all in our early 20s. Sometimes it's really hard to figure out how to bridge gaps when you're that young. It's like I do remember. I think it was my fourth year at Clubs Canada, and I remember. It was you were there, and Ilya was there, and there were a lot of other people who I don't see anymore, who I haven't spent. The two of you I see regularly and spend time with and are still connected. And I remember you all rolled in, just being able to do all this klezmer music, a lot of stuff that sounded completely different than the way we did it. And it was all already happening at an extremely high level from my perspective, like almost like an intimidatingly high level at sometimes. But then at the same time, here I am, like this hotshot young trombone player playing in New York and doing all these gigs with Michael and Frank London and all these people. So we were like, and sometimes there's this sort of defensiveness that pops up around that kind of thing, and I'm sure you felt it on some level.
Maybe.
But maybe, it's like I might be threatened, so I better stop that right now by being something. And you smile on your face, but really what it was just like you said. I think it was like this widening of the world, this sudden widening of the world where you're like, this is not what I thought this is way bigger than I thought it was. And so actually, would you mind telling a little bit about like the difference? But you mentioned Klezfest St. Petersburg, which I think a lot of people who are from the former Soviet Union, probably everybody who's been on this show, on this podcast from the former Soviet Union has mentioned, and what that was like, and then landing in North America, and I'm sure those were very really really different experiences, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, my very first of these festivals was actually the festival in Moscow, which was called Dona Fest and then later Yiddish Fest. And then I wound up at St. Petersburg, but I also had been connected to the community of St. Petersburg Class Fest for a while and going back and forth from basically, I think, from around the time that I kind of started actively playing this music over 20 years ago, which is so scary to think about, to be honest. Um,
Yeah.
but what was very special about those spaces is that there were residential festivals with a small select group of people. You had to apply to go. They were send in tapes and they were choosing people, but they were also reaching out to communities in former Soviet Union where people haven't been coming because their goals were to get people to learn this music and come and bring it back to their communities. It was very much a focused learning and bringing back um, thing. And the violinist that started my first band, Vorspiel, Inna Reichman, she went to St. Petersburg and got incredibly inspired, uh, picked up her violin that he hadn't touched, that she hadn't touched in years, and started learning to play this music and engaged Ilya and me um, to do this together. At the time, I was already singing at the Jewish community, like in a whatever, a vocal ensemble. Um, but those communities there were really, it was just a bunch of people that were excited and hungry to learn. And it was such a gang, but very open. You know, the first year I came, I felt like, ooh, I've heard these people on recordings and I know who most people in this room are. And it's just 60 people around, right? It's not like,
Mm, that's really
it's
small,
like
yeah.
60, 80 people. It's very intense. You're kind of boiling in this little pot in a small hotel, or like everybody lives at the same time, the same place, eats at the same place, all the classes are in the same place, you jam all night, you party, you sleep maybe a little bit, and then you get up in the morning and you do the whole thing again. So it's very intense, it's very close, and I felt like a little, intimidated maybe because I was also very young, right? And um, it turned out to be an incredibly also welcoming, kind community that I felt part of within the first day. Like there was no, and I didn't feel like anybody was like, "Oh, you're this, you're that." It was very, um, and the level of musicianship was incredibly high, right? Like it was a
Yeah.
lot of professional, semi-professional musicians. So when I came to European festivals for the first time, um, I was a little bit surprised by the mix of participation, and I was a little bit surprised that, and I'm sure some of the other people from former Soviet Union have mentioned this, that it's, um, let's say, not everybody is a professional musician.
Yeah, no, it's really it get like there's a commitment to having a more mixed level,
And
and it really changes the energy.
it was very strange to me, and I couldn't understand why they can't play, or like, or not
Mm,
everybody can play. And I have to be like, obviously, like, especially being young and like, I was very snooty about it. it
yeah.
it took me a while to understand the value of this. Like now I have a very different opinion about this, and I'm almost more interested in that than like working with professionals. um
Hmm.
but yeah, and then like Class Canada was my first North American experience, and that was by far the most Jewish one, which was a very, very, I mean, yeah, obviously, right? Like it's not surprising that that's so. But I have to say, with the former Soviet ones, I still don't know exactly who is Jewish and who is not. And honestly, I never cared. And I still
Yeah, no.
don't. And it's fine. But I will have to say that I'm going to assume that there is a good chunk of people that have some Jewish background or whatever. But uh, most of us grew up in very assimilated, very secular Soviet families, which didn't keep much tradition, which is not true for even secular assimilated American families. There is some
Yep.
sense of Jewishness and Jewish tradition that to me was very foreign and exciting. And another thing that was very exciting was to see the different levels of Judaism and commitment to tradition and religion and that whole relationship. Because where I grew up, you're either like Chabad Lubavitch, very hardcore, very narrow religious person, or you're an atheist. And this middle ground, it has changed since, but like while I was young, this middle ground barely existed, and I felt
Yeah.
very unwelcome, especially as a woman, right? Like it was very complicated relationship. I was not allowed to sing there. I had to be on the balcony. When I would come in for Purim, the rabbi would try to drink with my friends and distract me so that I don't. It was very, like, to me, it was a very intense thing. And I was not interested in touching anything religious. Whereas now I have a whole other relationship with religion and tradition, and it doesn't scare me that much anymore. And that was very much from meeting these North American communities. I hadn't experienced that before. And here is a super long answer to your super short question.
No, that's the way it's supposed to go. What's great about that is, for me, it was like I still, when you live in America, and especially if you live in the Northeast United States, it's really, really easy to just think that your experience is the experience of the entire world, in so many ways, and it's just, obviously it's not true, but then that thought only gets you so far. It's when you really understand how specifically not true it is, do you start to at least for me, do I really start to get somewhere. But what the first thing that I was really relating to was this sort of sense of finding this other space where you could explore yourself as a musician, as a Jewish person, through some of these klezmer festivals, right? So, like when I showed up at Klez Camp, I was, I had gone through a lot of the sort of mainstream Jewish after school. I didn't go to Jewish day school, but had my bar mitzvah, went to Hebrew high school, had some kind of chaperoned trip to Israel that was very birthright light ish, even though it wasn't officially a birthright trip, and just sort of was like, I don't know. So you sort of finish the curriculum, and then you just like, well, now what? And they're like, well, here's more curriculum, and like, no thanks. So then, when I got to Klez Camp, it was sort of like, whoa, you could just be a Jew. Like, you didn't have to be as Jewish anymore. You could just be like a Jew playing your Jewish music. And it was, it felt like I felt like I had found a home or something like that. But again, it was sort of like I felt like I was in a playground rather than in a school, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think that's I think it's different approaches, but this idea of finding yourself is very common, I think, for a lot of us who then decide to pursue this klezmer thing or Yiddish music world.
Well, it's like I wouldn't say I didn't grow up with anything Jewish, right? Like I grew up with
Sure,
other stuff, not what you
other stuff.
expect, right? Like I definitely grew up with bits and pieces of music, especially, um, like every Soviet cartoon, like for children, has basically klezmer accordion music as the soundtrack, right? Like all these composers are Jewish, all like, and they all come from rabbinic, like now I'm realizing this, right? Like, but they all come from rabbinical families. They all, that's our continuation, right? Like it goes in film, it
That's
goes,
crazy. That's so
it's
cool.
it's a, it's an insane thing, but like I grew up with it kind of like in my subconsciousness. I grew up with jokes, I grew up with like maybe some little things, but I didn't have, so it's interesting what, like you've, like we found like through these communities, we both found like this kind of like comfortable middle ground.
Yes.
You know, I found something that has more shape and form and content, and gave me a framework where I feel very comfortable expressing my relationship with tradition and religion,
Yes.
and my politics and my philosophies. And you found also a space that is not maybe as pushing you towards this or that, and kind of like a more laid back way of being Jewish,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah. It was like I mean, the way I think about it right now is it's like the difference between peoplehood, a sense of personhood or peoplehood versus a sense of like belonging to a group or a sect or something like that.
Right.
You know, it's in a way, at least when you think about it from a cultural standpoint, it's sort of the ethnicity of being at least an Ashkenazi Jew, you know, as opposed to just the religion of it. But that's the funny thing about, of course, we don't, that's a whole other podcast about, is the Jewishness being a hybrid or a weird sort of middle ground or mix and whatever.
Oh, dangerous.
I know exactly. It's dangerous. We're not going to go there
but
unless
also
you want to go there.
but also I think like what's very special about like all these, like, let's call it communities, because I can't even name it one community, but like the international
Yes.
klezmer Yiddish culture worlds. I think like there is also a comfort in it being a very representation of a whole world. It's very diverse. And
Yes.
maybe if you look at it as an American, and you don't see, like on a picture you won't see the diversity, maybe because like it ethnically or racially it will look like a less diverse crowd, but it's an incredibly diverse community full of people with polarized opinions, and um, politics and relationships with religion and art and creativity. And
Mm-hmm.
in a way, it creates a space where very different people can meet and have a safe communication, which I think is very important, besides all the other things that it brings up a whole generation of diverse creatives in our field.
Yeah, it's amazing, and like let's not forget also especially in terms of the people who inspired us to join this community or make our own places in it, just like ridiculously awesome art, you know, people who are just incredible musicians,
Absolutely.
dedicating their lives to this like very niche music that, I always think about. I mean, you didn't have to deal with this, but I think about like Hankus or someone like that going to some older people who had sort of stopped playing this music and being like, "I want to play this music," and they're like, "You don't want to do that. Don't do it." And then
And
they
they would
just
go
did it
like,
anyway.
why?
Why? And I guess the answer, which who knows whether they could understand it, but like this is why, because it led somehow it had within it, even though it was even though like especially the instrumental klezmer was a sort of real insular Jewish tradition on some level, even though those were cosmopolitan musicians, it had within it this possibility that then combined with the times and places to then become this wildly diverse and interesting and messy global community. And it's true, I agree with you completely. Like one of the things that those of us who have had the privilege to teach and move around the world and perform in all these different places have experienced is how different all these little sort of outposts are between each other.
But also within themselves. That's what like is so exciting to me. Like we we somehow with the agreement that we are focusing on creating together or learning together or being together for the sake of building a Yiddish land or whatever,
Right.
somehow we often let go of other differences, or we create spaces where
Yeah.
we can actually have conversations about these other differences in maybe less polarized or less aggressive way. It creates really spaces for us to kind of like be more human together than in a lot of the rest of the world. I don't know, maybe I'm a little like
No, I
sometimes I
agree with
think
that.
I'm a little I'm a little bit of a dreamer there, but who knows?
At its best, but I've seen it happen, and I just think it's an opportunity. We have this opportunity to remember that we all have something really important in common with each other. That's like really important, and it helps. That's what helps you figure out how to stay close together when you're trying to deal with these other places of difference. So thinking about, you talked about finding a path to help you navigate between creativity, tradition, religion, identity, and all this stuff. What were some of the first projects that where you were either called upon or you took it upon yourself to sort of bring out something, like you said, stuff that you think really offers something to the world that maybe wasn't there before? Because I'm assuming when you started, you were like the rest of us, where you're just either doing what somebody else was like, hey, do this, or you're singing the stuff that is more commonly known. But I know you've moved way past that.
I
So yeah,
still sing stuff that
when did
is
that stop?
commonly known from time
I
to
know,
time.
like from time to time, we just a well-timed My Yiddish Mama can really slay in the right setting.
My Yiddish Mama
I
was
got
the
that look.
very first song that I performed with Vorspiel when it still was a
Amazing.
very young klezmer band with a violinist, accordionist, and two singers singing in harmony, like the Berry
Amazing.
Sisters,
Uh,
but not jazzy.
yes. Right.
The Eastern
Yeah, but
European
like, so
kind, the Berry Sisters without the swing. Um,
when did that start happening? You're like, oh, actually, we're really doing this is some new
well,
stuff,
I
even if
have
it's
to
old
say,
new.
Yiddish Summer Weimar and all the work that Alan Byrne has been doing there has been an incredibly important um, window into possibility and development for me. Alan has been incredibly supportive of both Elia and me and like helped us be there and learn there and created spaces for us that I definitely don't think I I definitely wouldn't be the same person I am if I didn't have all those opportunities to learn and experience there. So also his approach is very interesting because besides um, trying to go and connect the musicianship and the academic study and scholarly study of history behind everything, which I found I very much connect to. I guess like I can pretend like I'm not a nerd, but I'm a Yiddish singer. I'm a nerd, and it's
Yeah, I was
okay.
gonna say
It's okay.
exactly.
It's okay. Um,
It's really okay. If you're listening to this, you too might be a nerd,
and
and it's
that's
okay.
okay. But so that kind of combination of learning in depth and then creativity was a big inspiration. It was very fascinating to see him analyze some of the arrangements they've done with Brave Old World, and
Hmm.
that I think still to this day is a very misunderstood band because for some reason they were pegged as this like very traditionalist band, but if you put on their albums, it's like maybe because they don't ha- play like electric guitars or something.
Yeah, there's no drum set when there's a really jazzy solo
There is
going
no
on.
drum
People
set.
kind of miss it.
There is no drum set.
Yes.
That's why they just like are like, oh, that's folky. And it's like,
Hmm.
No, listen to it. I think it's very interesting and thoughtful how they worked with going from very traditional to um, very open. And I think also 2007, that was, I think that's this very important year in my life. The topic of Yiddish summer was um, something like beyond comfort zone or something like that. And they started also doing these improvisation workshops, and they had Cesar Lerner and Marcelo Mogilevsky there just playing with how you can like and giving all these tools on here is a tune, but like you can take it to a whole other level if you have uh, ideas and musical language. You can just play with it. And around that time, maybe like a couple of years later, the Ruth Rubin book, the big pale one with the CD from
Yeah.
the collection, the Jewish Life in the Old Country, fell into my lap, and I listened to those recordings, and I was like, wait a minute, that is different from everything else. That is the stuff that
Mm.
I actually need to learn because I can go to all these workshops and learn songs and keep singing them, but what is it? What is the thing, right? Like you in the instrumentalist community, you've been working on detail and phrasing and timing and all of this analysis for decades until then, and it was only that recent that this Yiddish song community has started really working very focusedly on this. So obviously there were people that were doing it very deeply before, like Michael Alpert and Carol Freeman, and there were others. Um, Ethel Rain, obviously.
Ethel
But
Rame.
Ethel Rain was not that known for that. She did it.
No, she was not.
She was
She did it sort of on her own.
kind of secretly doing it. Not secretly,
Yes.
but secretly. And
Yeah. She was. Her focus was elsewhere,
and yes,
at least professionally.
so around that time, so I had this CD, and I was doing all these like improvisation work with Cesar and Mogi and Alan with his present time composition, and I was really getting deep into that, and so was Ilya. So we would come back to Riga and we would just like play with these things and try these things out, and and it really felt like, oh, we're gonna this is where this is where we're gonna go, right? Like it just felt that
Hmm.
again, right? We worked on it, but it felt natural, right? Again, it wasn't like,
Yeah.
oh, I have this. Now I'm gonna try this. Oh, maybe I should try red lipstick. I found red lipstick. It wasn't like that. It was just like all these
Yeah.
different things, and then I was complaining to Alan how I want to learn more of this and how nobody is offering this, what I'm hearing on this one record. And I have studied it, but I don't know how to get more of it. Lawrence Sklamberg sent me some more songs to listen to from the collection that was just being digitized at that time. And right around that time, Pete Rushevsky published a video of a concert they did at CTMD with Dave Terrace in 78.
78.
And Ethel Rame sang 2 songs in that concert.
That's right. She did.
Papier sich weiß and Mein Ruheplatz. And she just took a chair, a mic, sat down, and sang. And Alan showed me that video and was like, what if I get this person to teach it? Would that be what you... And I was like, why are you even asking? What kind of question is that?
Yeah,
I had
totally.
no idea who she was. I didn't know about the penny
Wow,
whistlers.
okay.
I was was
Yeah,
completely
no,
disconnected from American folk music
of
world,
course,
right? Like it
of
seems
course.
like
Why?
how
Yeah,
could you?
exactly.
But
No, but it makes
but
total
I didn't
sense.
know anything.
I was too. I didn't know anything about. I mean, I knew some of that filtered in just because. But I didn't know any of the connections about it. You know, like maybe I never even heard an original recording of X or Y song. You know, it's just I knew some folkies sang it around here. You know, or
Right.
whatever. But yeah, but so and I remember this. I remember Ethel, and I think even when I interviewed her for this podcast, she was sort of like, yeah, and then it's like, you know, I've been doing this for a really long time, and then suddenly here I am teaching Yiddish music, like Yiddish songs.
Right. So that first year, Alan brought her to teach in Weimar. It was revolutionary for me. You know, it
Yeah,
was her, Meishke, Alpert, and it's a Gottesman as main faculty, and I think she had like some issues with her voice, like she had like a laryngitis, and and she
yeah,
taught
yeah,
the
yeah.
whole time from just this recording of Lifsche Schechter Widman, and and I think in the whole week we learned just that one song.
That sounds like Ethel.
It was the best thing. I
Yeah,
What I learned in that week, learning that one song from her, I've used for the rest of my life.
Sie haben nie gewollt zu leben und seinen in den Weingarten gekommen und seinen in den Weingarten gekommen die schöne Perle von der Beimele haben sie abgenommen die schöne Perle von der Beimele haben sie abgenommen. Ei, lieber Gott, helf uns das Ei, oi, wie die in Mitzrayim, oi, wie die in Mitzrayim, als unser Liebe wird werden ausgeführt, weil wir trinken Lechaim, als unser Liebe wird werden ausgeführt, weil wir trinken Lechaim.
You know?
see, this is what I'm talking about, Sasha. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I'm gonna insert rant here, but
Go ahead.
you know, one of the things that's so great about our tradition is how, you know, there's two things. One is that, like many folk musics, it's incredibly rich and diverse. It's like each song is is a giant ecosystem of nuances and inflections, and that reveal themselves beautifully under sort of like microscopic attention,
Yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
that's Ethel Rame's approach, as far as I understand it, is just an incredible microscopic attention, and that's certainly what you would do to teach one song for an entire week. And I think that, like, when people who are sort of like tangentially like or trying to approach this music, like, that's where the magic is. Honestly, Jewish music is, it's like, yeah, it's sort of this mix of Western and Eastern in some ways, Ashkenazi Jewish music, and it has pretty simple chord changes. It has pretty normal melodies. It has beautiful melodies. But if you're talking about stuff where you're like, what can I get that I just wouldn't find anywhere else? It's all there.
It's just
It's on this
microscopic. You're
other
right.
level.
It's
It's
so
really
nuanced.
microscopic, and what's fun is, like you said, like, this is, it's each little thing that's so tiny that you have to maybe slow down the recording to half speed, or you have to listen to this 3-second clip over and over again. That all becomes the platform for artistic expression. For, you know, these are it's just incredibly fertile seeds for artistic exploration.
And it's incredibly interesting to deal with that. Like, because in the end, there is just that many people that will hear it. Because
Yeah.
because if it's like, if it took me, who has been in it for a while at that point and discovering and listening, it took me that deep relationship and workshop to start hearing so much. And after that, I learned so much more, and things that I have not heard, not heard before. And I'm sure you've had this experience where you go back to an old recording and you go like, wait, this is it must be the, no, I had it, it was a different recording. This is not this. I was listening to a different one, right? When it's just like,
no, it was just yours changed.
Yeah,
Your mind changed.
absolutely. And you learn more things, you hear more things, right? And you forget maybe something, and it's just like it keeps. It's very. It's not static. It just keeps moving all the time, right? And
Yeah.
and yeah, that was that was really, and it's funny because you asked me about what was the thing that brought me to more creativity and more innovation, and what actually, and my answer is actually studying the depth of old tradition, because
Right.
once I had this footing, once I was standing on my 2 feet hard, and I could feel it wash over me, and I could feel like I'm not copying a recording anymore. I'm singing a song, and I'm singing it immersed in this style. It really opened up so many more windows and doors to um, to explore and be more creative with it. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's why, like, that gave me also those tools of doing it, but also the deep knowledge and respect for this tradition. And I think, like, this kind of creativity is just, even people who don't necessarily understand what it is that you're doing, when you have that knowledge and connection, even if they don't understand the language, they will connect to it. They will hear it. They will see that this is grounded in something more than I picked up a book and I learned a song. You know?
Yeah. I agree. I think it's like you can have a thin flavor or you can have a really hearty flavor to what you're doing. And this work is what imparts that, richness and that heartiness. And again, it just creates, like you said, it creates a stronger platform for wherever else you want to take it, however far out or farther away you want to take it. And then the last thing you said about how it changes and you hear new things when you come back to it, and it actually just reminded me of what, like, a healthy, loving relationship with someone is. It's like, so I guess one of the things we're saying is, like, if you want to get involved in this music, especially because Yiddish music is kind of slippery, because there's no Yiddish music homeland. There's no place that you can go as a tourist.
There's no flag.
You can't go
plant.
as a tourist. There's no flag. You can't plant. I was playing a gig last week, and we played a set of only 21st century klezmer tunes, all new stuff. It was very sweet. And afterwards, there was an Irish trio, and the one guy turns to the other guy and he says, "Hey, what are those extra sections of that one tune that your dad wrote and added onto this tune?" And I was like, nobody ever says that in klezmer. You never would hear that in a Yiddish music context. The closest you get is, like, here in Philly, you're hanging with Susan and they go, "Oh, we're gonna play that one of our family tunes," and that's still not even quite the same of just, like, a ridiculously direct extent, like, knowing the tradition knowing what the extension of the tradition was, and then having a really deep personal relationship to it. So it's a little weird on our end. We know that. We've been dealing with it forever. But I think what we're saying is like, if you're going to get into this stuff, just love it. Like, love the heck out of it.
That's the thing.
Right? Just like love it. Love it so hard. And that's what's going to get you through. And love the sound, right? Scales are boring. Chords are boring. Who cares about what you can write down on paper? There's a sound to this stuff.
Well, I once had
You know,
this situation. I was at a place, at a university, and doing like this kind of like talk back interview. There were like students and professors. And there was a composition professor. And he said, I still like it gets me so emotional. And he said, "Are there any interesting Yiddish folk songs?" And I was like, "What do you mean by this question? It's a very strange question. What do you mean?" And he was like, "Well, I looked at this book with songs, and all the melodies were very simple and boring. And I'm curious, are there any good ones?" And honestly, I wanted to get up and punch him, but I didn't because let's say no to violence.
think,
But
yeah.
but it took me like
That's
I had
pretty
to collect
stupid.
myself because it's also like in a very public forum
Yeah.
and it's like an authority person to all these students, and I felt attacked. I really felt attacked, and I said,
That was an attack. It was a demeaning attack.
and I was like, first of all, what's written on the page doesn't represent the music. And the music is so much more than what's just on the page. And the traditional music has so much different levels that you can analyze from just composition standpoint. If you are a modern composer doing all the post-tonal kind of work, yeah, we don't have any of that because we're dealing with folk music. But you know what? Folk music doesn't have that kind of thing generally because
No.
because all traditional music has to do with connection to body and ground and very natural processes. And some traditional music has evolved into more modern music for various reasons. But if you go to the ground level of what traditional music is, some of it sounds very strange to us, but it's just because it lives in a very non-Western world, and we're trying to apply Western world rules to it. And the same to this
Yeah.
music, we can't just apply Western music world rules to it. It's a little bit more than that, and it's a little bit wider than that. And the nuance is you kind of need to let yourself hear that in order to fall in love with it. You need to,
Yeah. It can be really hard because you can't write it down that easily or at all.
or at all. And the thing is, trying to groove it faster doesn't necessarily do it.
Not necessarily in our case.
Mostly not.
Yeah, I was thinking of a counterexample because I was just someone I went to college with just put out a really, really beautiful record of incredibly uncompromising modern, hyper modern music, and I had this guy. His name is Kim Cass. He just put out this record called Levs. Nothing to do with Jewish, although it should be. But and I remember sending him some some music, folk music that I couldn't quite figure out that had a very non-quantizable metric groove, and he's such a polyrhythmic genius that I was like, he'll be able to describe this to me in a way that I could communicate to other musicians, and he was so smart because he just said, "Oh, I love it. Just feels like it lifts in this unusual way, and I love not knowing what it is." And I'm like, "You're like, thank
There you go.
Like, that's just such a nice thing. That's like, and yeah, and then he, his anyway, it doesn't matter. I go talk about him because I'm listening to his record and he's really great. But just this idea is like you could hear that and just appreciate it, and then let it wash over you, and uh, and and then see what happens. You know, I want to say that this has been, it's so great to like get in, especially because we're similar age, we're basically the same age, and we had a lot of the similar, we were students of this music in some of the same places at the same times. And I think that there's a lot of sensibilities that we really share, both as like students and as teachers and as people who are trying to communicate and bring other people to this music. But I want to make sure that everybody knows that you are one of the most hardworking, most consistently performers of Yiddish music that there is working today. I mean, you are just hitting it really hard. So it's not just like, and performing, teaching, organizing, you're doing it all the time, but like you have so many projects. And I was thinking about one of the things that we've been talking to, we just talked to Susie Evans and Sylvia Taranko about their project with the KMDMP material. And we're going to be talking with, we're going to be, we're talking with a bunch of people who are working with archival sources. And one of the big questions that came up is like, what do you do when there are no source recordings, when there's only some kind of notation? And, but that, and we talked to a bunch of people. You're in like at least 75% of the projects that, that, we got Cecil's songs from Testimonies. Hopefully we'll be talking, and it's, so I was just like, we just need to talk to you. But it's like, now that you're out there and you've like digested all this stuff and you're doing this stuff, you're involved in all these projects as a performer where you have to bring all this stuff and figure out how to perform this music X, Y, and Z. Like, what kind of skills have you gained as a performer through both, like, I guess, like, what skills come from your studies and what skills come from the gigs, and how has that all contributed to making you who you are as, like, a really powerful, awesome performer that I'm always happy to be on stage with?
That's a big question, Daniel.
There are only big questions on this podcast.
It's interesting. Well, I feel like most things I do have to do with some sort of archival work, even if the project is not necessarily directly connected to it. Like, say, with Vorspiel, we
Mm-hmm.
play our rock, like prog rock, psychedelic rock arrangements of traditional songs, but that's still archival work, right? Like, we're still working with collections, we're still finding repertoire within, like, be it Ruth Rubin, Stonehill, or Bergovsky, or anywhere else, right? So, and then comes the creativity and everything else. I think, um, to me, like, each project calls for a slightly different relationship. So I have a certain set of skills that I've accumulated over years. Um, be it the archival work and studying the nuance and putting it in my voice, be it vocal work and working with different vocal techniques and learning about the anatomy of our vocal tracts, and
Yeah.
focusing deeply on what is it that makes our voice sound this or another way, and how that can be translated back from um, recordings into sound. Analyzing some sort of um, continuity in how what builds this style, and what builds this style from all these folk singers that we luckily can hear now, because so much of it is available to hear, be it Yiddish Song of the Week, the blog from Center for Traditional Music and Dance, which is a
I love that blog.
fantastic source. Also, already with articles about it and text, everything is there. Be it the whole Ruth Rubin collection, which is unbelievable. Now, a lot of Stonehill
Yeah.
collection is also online. So there's a lot of spaces to just listen. Um, even some of the stuff from Vernadsky Library is online, right? Like there are these 10 CDs that they put out from digitized wax cylinders.
That's probably enough. That's enough to get started with. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's tough. You kind of have to get used to listening to this stuff, not only because the scratchy recording, but also to learn from it. But that gives you a lot of space to start walking on, and vocal technique and performance, right? Like I guess like listen, I also have always been a performer my whole life. I don't remember not
Mm.
performing. um, I was in various theater groups growing up, doing from like physical improvisational body theater to like very normal classical stage theater. I've I've played with this my whole life as well, right? So I've sung in choirs, I've sung in groups, I've sung solo. I've like I've done like I don't remember not doing it. So it's it's a combination of like practicing it my whole life and putting the
Yeah.
focus on learning details and connecting all of that. And I feel like every project calls for a slightly different relationship with how archival or how wide I can go, right? Like so, for instance, when we were working on the Zemmer Ensemble project, which is a project based on the music that was recorded by Jewish artists in Berlin between 1932 and 1938. There was a label that existed here, actually, to Zemmer and Lucrophone. Actually, the a documentary about this project has recently been released and is hitting cinemas here in Germany and in Austria this summer, and hopefully will also go to festivals internationally, which is a beautifully made film about the story of Dr. Reinhold Lotz and his collaborators who uh, traveled around the world and found all these recordings and put this whole collection that was destroyed in Kristallnacht back together. And now we can hear the voices of these people um, who were Jewish, but the music is not necessarily Jewish, right? It's Jewish artists, so it's German music, a lot of German music, cabaret, Yiddish song, liturgical music, Russian songs, classical music. It's everything, right? So for me, especially connecting to some of the artists and reading about them, I wanted to learn as much from their performance and channel them as much as possible. Like, for instance, there is a singer had a very tragic life. She was a big star, young star here at Volksbühne Theater, Dora Gerson, um, and didn't survive the war. She was murdered in Auschwitz. And there are these two songs that we have, and that's the only recordings that we have of her. And they're on these labels, and they're both German songs. They're very strong, they're very powerful. Her performances are fantastic. So I was trying to find this space of where I don't copy her necessarily, but I channel her, I learn from her. I imagine that this was one of her performances, but what can I learn from her to imagine if she performed this song many, many, many times? How would that sound, right? Like, what are these different things that I can learn from her? And there are others where I let myself to be like much, much more free um, with my and have it be me singing these songs more. For instance, we are working on an album that should come out in December that we've been working on, Craig, Ilya, and I've been working on with our Latvian folk musician friends, called something Black Rooster, something. It's still, the title is still being finalized. And this is a project based on a collection by a Latvian composer who, as he writes in his diary, was walking out of a store and there was this old Jew sitting there and singing a song that was so beautiful that no great Jewish composer like Mandelstam or Rubinstein could have composed. So he took out his notebook and started writing down. And then he followed the Jewish community and he wrote down a good bunch of songs. A lot of that wound up somewhere, maybe in Russia. We don't know where it is, but there are two notebooks of his Jewish songs that he has collected around the turn of the century. So late 19th, early 20th century. And that inspired him to go back to collecting Latvian music, actually. And he is an incredibly important name in Latvian musicology, because if he hadn't collected a whole bunch of songs back then,
Right.
we wouldn't have a whole bunch of Latvian music that we have now. So, but his first inspiration was Jewish. It's a little bit the
Wow.
reverse of, like all these stories of all these Jews playing Irish or Balkan or American and being told like, you guys
Yeah.
go play your music, go research your music, and that's how klezmer revival started. Very simplified version, but like he was the opposite with the Latvian music.
Right.
So these Latvian musicians found us, and it was really inspiring to me because these um, really great folk musicians from Latvia, they're all in their 20s. When they discovered this music, they were deeply moved and they wanted to learn more about how they can perform it because there's just hand notation of it and maybe some
Yeah.
part of the lyrics. Um, they wanted to learn more about it because they said, this is also Latvian music. This is from Latvia. And to me, it was first of all, it's a huge development in the mentality of younger population in Latvia. And I think it's a great development of understanding this connection to the ground, that's, if it's not ethnically Latvian and not in the Latvian language, same as it can be translated to any other culture, what I'm saying right now, right? That this is
Yeah.
still music that belongs to there. So this was very moving to me, and they're really great. So working out this, so we did this program of Jewish and Latvian music collected by this guy Emils Melngailis, Black Rooster, because Melnais Gailis in Latvian means black rooster. His last name.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah.
um, so when I do that, for me, it's very important to. Also, there is no sound for me to work with there, right? But my studies of all of this tell me I know something about Yiddish singing and traditional
You
Yiddish
do.
singing. And it's important for me to also be very me in this project, because this is us sitting together, singing these songs and kind of like applying Latvian and Jewish music to each other as neighbor music, and have this dialogue. In this dialogue, I can't be a different person. I can't be an imaginary grandma from somewhere, right? I need to be me.
Yeah.
Frische Floden von Kamot mit einem alten Fass. Frische Floden von Kamot mit einem alten Fass. A Barrikade stellen wir auf mitten Gas. A Barrikade stellen wir auf mitten Gas. Die Barrikade aufgestellt in Stiebel mit doch keiner. Die Barrikade aufgestellt in Stiebel mit doch keiner. Dürfen Polizei vorbei, die Kinder warten stehen. Dürfen Polizei vorbei, die Kinder warten.
Does that answer your question more or less?
Absolutely. No, it's just the right way. It's just the right way. And I can tell people, I've heard some of the recordings because Ilya's been here and we were hanging, and he was working on the album. So yeah, stay tuned because it's really good, and it's one of the things that we've been so blessed to do is to open up these new sort of channels. It's kind of like the map, another portion of the map gets revealed, and sometimes it's in 2D where it's like, oh, I didn't know there was music in that part of the world, and sometimes it's in 3D where it's like, oh, I didn't know there was music right underneath our feet in this place that we already thought we knew really well, you know, and both of those are really really useful because again, it just reveals a more rich, interesting world, and I think the more points of information or places to stand mean the more points of possible connection between different groups of people.
Yeah, I think like I was having this conversation with a colleague, and they were saying, I'm so tired of this whole thing of like this one new collection comes to life, and everybody goes like, "This is the real thing," and I'm like, I don't think that that's what it is. I think we're just excited that there is more stuff. It's just more stuff, and it just enriches our general picture,
Yeah.
right?
Sometimes it feels like there won't be any more stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it feels like it's just lost.
So yeah, I mean, I want people to understand. I think that we were on tour with Michael Winograd doing a whole Hanukkah program this past winter, which was so fun, and I just want to not only want people, like, we've done such a good job of, I think, sharing our own experiences, how we learn this music, how it inspires us, as performers. And I would love, I feel like you're such a good person to try to get people to understand just what it's like being a freaking professional musician in the Yiddish, as a Yiddish musician, and like the kind of things it takes to like pull together like a life in this music. I mean, at this point, this is your main like source of income. I mean,
Yeah.
performing, writing, teaching, all that stuff. And obviously it's like you're performing, you're teaching, you're writing, you're doing the organizing this thing. So yeah, same for me. It's like I don't have another position, and it's but let's talk about you. You're in Seattle doing Seattle Yiddish Fest. You're doing Shtetl Berlin. Then suddenly you're on tour with you and Craig and Lauren, or like you're always doing this. Like what's it like having? I mean, you said you've always been a performer, but so you're probably used to having, and now that you've been traveling so much for so long, you're used to having a full schedule of performing and to be able to like sort of base your life around that. But how do you manage planning and like thinking long term with so many balls in the air, especially so many different bands and projects?
Who told you
How
I
do you deal with
manage?
scheduling? What? Who told
Who
you?
said
Oh
I
yeah,
manage?
exactly. It looks great from the outside. I know the grass is always greener.
uh, it's really
But
tough.
like, yeah, I mean, like,
I mean, I
what's it
try
what's it
to.
like dealing with all this stuff? It's really tough.
Well, I try to kind of block things out in what a possibility of things would be, and then kind of uh, see what is realistic and what is not as realistic, and grab anything that comes my way. And it's very important to write everything down for me.
What would be in terms of a time frame? How far in the future do you try to decide a block?
At least 9 months, hopefully a year, but at least nine
Yeah.
months. And but also that doesn't mean that sometimes somebody reaches out and there's like a perfect spot for something to just like put it right in there, and they reached out a month in advance. Sometimes things work out differently, right? Like, but I try to kind of have a general picture of what's gonna happen within at least half a year, 9 months. and general picture. It doesn't mean that everything is confirmed. It doesn't mean that everything is planned and all the flights are booked and all the things are organized. And also, I find that so complicated and confusing and like, yeah, just all day today, actually. Craig and I spent figuring out how to book this flight or that flight and just deciding which ones are cheaper and how is it realistic, and also in a way like there's 3 days that I also want to go and see my family for those 3 days, and how do I stick it in there, and does it make sense, and which it's the logistics are complicated. They are complicated, but I find like writing things down helps me a lot. Like I have a very specific system of what is in what color in my calendars, and I have my Apple calendar and my Google calendar, and I have like different strategies of what goes on what, and like what is the shared calendar that people see, and here's like all my other notes on my private like I have all this stuff. I have notes and lists
That's
of
great.
things, and uh, things still fall through the cracks all the time because it's really, really,
It's too much,
it's
right?
really hard and it's a lot. And I try to wear a lot of different hats. I do research, I teach, I organize. We have now our own organization here in Berlin that runs the festival and other events that we're organizing through the year. It's just yeah, it's a lot, but you know, there are definitely moments when I just go like, I'm just so tired, and I'm tired of touring, I'm tired of doing this, I want to, and I just go like, why didn't I like become a YouTuber and just unpack weird packages in front of a camera? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Or I don't know, get a tech job and just code. I could code, but
Yeah.
I think like that I would last for like a week, and then I would be like, no, no,
Yeah. No,
it's all good,
that's sort of the
it's all
thing. It's
good.
like you realize you're stuck. You're like, no, I'm doing what I need to do. You
Yeah.
know, you're doing what you need to do, and like I will say I admire especially, and I hear that you have like you and Craig are together and you can push each other on it. You're able to maybe do things that you together that you might. But I see it. I'm in awe of your ability to keep the balls rolling, and it's really something else. I mean, what what are some I mean, let's get into it. Like what are some of the really big current projects that you're excited about? We talked about this new project with this Latvian folk and Jewish Latvian folk music. And what are some of the other projects that are on your plate that you're trying to block out and get rolling? We can tell people about, get them excited.
Well, this year, Craig and I are also coming to Klas Canada and to Ashkenaz to do a thing that we started uh, just before the pandemic. It was commissioned by the is it Milken Archive at UCLA. It's a program of Jewish songs of social change, and it's a semi-classical kind of program, and a little, so it's Lawrence Klamberg and I, and Craig Butelman has made these string quintet arrangements for a number of songs, and we were trying to look at social change in a bit wider range and a bit of wider idea than, very often people hear social change and they just go for worker songs and Bund and this kind of stuff and revolution, and I think that's all very important, but we're also looking at female empowerment and at religious changes and just changes, changes that have, and generational assimilation changes. So we've been so we looked at this wide range of Yiddish songs, think there is a song in English, or two. Um, and Craig wrote this really beautiful modern arrangements of it. So we're also going to get into a studio and record that, and hoping to take that on tour in spring. So that is a very exciting thing, because it's also like, besides other things, it premiered on March 1st, 2020. So you can imagine how it was just like this long way of getting it going, and then you know we all know what happened. So it's
Yeah.
getting back into this
I
project
think
is
I saw
getting.
you. I saw you a week and a half later, and then things got really
Oh
weird.
gosh, it was like less than we could have. I think like it was like a week later. Oh gosh, yeah. Well, we're in Germany. We're in Germany, and it was a very strange time.
We were in Germany.
It was a very strange time,
It was very strange.
and
We've all made it out,
well, we
and we'll
went
never
on tour
forget
to
it.
Scotland and just stayed there for 2 months, which was perfect because we were next door to Michael
I know.
Alpert,
How
and
cool. Yeah, you two landed real well.
yeah, we did. We definitely did. It was a special time, like for us, Also, we got to grow closer to this great, creative, beautiful human that we've been learning from for such a long time. And Emily, his wife, is such a wonderful, smart, brilliant woman. It was really a beautiful, scary, complicated, beautiful time. And Craig and Michael recorded an absolutely fantastic album. Fantastic. It's
Yeah, that's great.
it's so beautiful and so special, this whole recording. And I think there's lots of things about it. But yeah, so these are the two kind of like big coming up things among all the other still working projects. The new film that just came out about the Zemmer Ensemble is very exciting and beautiful. Yeah, like a few months ago, Daniel Kahn sat me down and he was like, Sasha, how many projects are you in? Like, how many projects do you have? Like, you have too many. List them. How many do you have? And I started counting, and I kind of got a little scared because I think I got to 12, but when I started putting them on my website, I realized I forgot to. Um, so,
There's a lot.
it's a lot. And, when you ask me what I'm most like excited about things coming up, it's like, I'm almost scared that I'm not going to mention one of them because I'm excited about all of the things coming up. Like, because each of these things takes a slightly different space and equally important space for me. Like, I am part of this incredible theater cabaret piece that Michael Wex wrote called The Last Night at the Cabaret Yiddish. Like a mosquito, Yiddish, which is a reimagination of a 30s Warsaw Yiddish cabaret. And we're going to also do it this fall in Vancouver. And it's supposed to also come to Europe
Oh,
next
fun.
year. It's a really like a fantastic piece, and it lets me be silly and wear cowboy hats, um, and it's a great cast, and it's a lot of fun. And and here in Germany, I work a lot with Craig and the wonderful Sanne Mörike, um, who is like totally the most incredible musician to work with, and so humble, and so uh, she should be so much better known in North America for the most incredible accordionist she is. Um, so maybe those are maybe that's not as big of a project, but I'm excited about every little gig we do. And now I'm really, I think what's very important to me right now is growing our shtetl here. I feel like we have reached a point where there is it's a certain moment here, like we've reached a community, and now it's a question what we're going to do with all of this. Because there is an incredible uh, young community of Yiddishists now hanging out around Berlin and living here. And see, nobody lives in Berlin. We hang out around it. um, that that meet in bars and speak Yiddish regularly and organize poetry events and have a poetry group that write together. It's a brilliant group of people. And there is us that do all the klezmer and Yiddish song and dance things here. And we're kind of like growing into a whole new, like actual kind of shtetl. So to me, it's a big question of like what are the next steps that we're gonna take here and how we're gonna um, grow it into a deeper community.
That's beautiful. And I'm so glad that you have the opportunity to do that. And I think maybe that's a really nice little spot to wrap up here. So thank you so much, Sasha. It's always a pleasure to hang, and I'm glad we got to hang deep today.
Yeah, this was good. I feel like something healing happened. No, I'm serious.
I know.
Like it just feels nice and warm. Thank you.
My pleasure. That's what we're going for. Super fun.
Ach Josef, Josef, bist du mir a Tane bist du allemal gewinn. Es ist wahr, a sei wie heiß Chane, oftmal hab ich es allein gesehen. Ach Josef, Josef, bist du mir a Tachschi, seh nur wie bei dir der Ponym brennt. Sag mir, wer ist sie gewinn, sag, was hat da geschehen, oh Josef Langschein.
Well, that was my conversation with the amazing, awesome Sasha Lurje, someone who I am just so grateful to know and call a friend. As you heard, she's got her hands in all sorts of musical projects, organizing projects, and you should really check as many of them out as you can. She's got a good maintained website. Not talking about myself critically there, but you can go there and you can see all of the amazing projects she's in. Probably it's not even all of them. There's probably more than that. So go there to track her down, social media, and also Shtetl Berlin and the jam sessions and all the really interesting work and community building that she and other people in Berlin have done there. So once again, check out Sasha, hopefully in a city or town or concert hall near you, but also online, and support her and everybody who is really trying to build out and make even bigger and more inclusive this wonderful, amazing community of people dedicated to klezmer music, to Yiddish culture, to Yiddish music, to finding ourselves through our peoplehood and all the things that make up a people. It's what I'm trying to do. And once again, if you want to support us, you can help us out. Patreon.com/ratingothers. You can just be in touch with us either through social media or you might know where to find me. And with that, I want to wish everyone a happy post-high holiday week. You made it through the marathon, especially shout out to all the clergy who really always make it happen during this packed season. And I hope you're all hanging in there. And good Shabbos.
Oy Yosef, Josef, bist du mir a Gute, wie deine Werte ist mir Zuckersüß.
Mir gebracht,
Dein Herzele
immer
ist weg, als sie wie
gewesen
Gute,
wie a Teibel.
wie ich heiß Chane,
Hast du mir
ist noch
mein Leben
gewiss.
süß gemacht?
oi Chane Josef, oi Josef Chane.
Wie es ist gut, wenn Scholem ist voran. Alle hat Hand gesehen, was bei uns ist da geschehen, was hat passiert bei Josef Kledermann. Alle hat Hand gesehen, was bei uns ist da geschehen, was hat passiert bei Josef